Welcome to another edition of Writer Nation Station, presented by American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistics partner, investing in Writer Nation Station and St. Mary's, Ohio, as well as Plus One Professionals Real Estate, your local real estate agency, and to our other fine sponsors. Local newspapers play an important and vital role in our lives, our forefathers' lives, and even our unborn grandchildren's lives, whether we realize it or not. This became forever ingrained in me when my siblings and I started Writer Nation Station, as we needed background info, details, and pictures for our vodcast. Without the local paper's coverage of events long ago, we would lose some of our identity, our heritage, our legacy. Fortunately, we have had iconic people who have served our local paper, the Evening Leader, to capture our identity, our heritage, our legacy. The obvious name, Casey Geiger, but also names like Miller, Schumann, Stillwell, and Helmstetter come to mind. The recorded past informs the present and the future, who we were as a community and why. I often wonder as I peruse the old Evening Leaders if present St. Mary's is proud of past St. Mary's. And conversely, if former St. Mary's is proud of current St. Mary's. The Evening Leader can provide a slight glimpse into that imponderable. Oftentimes, locals take their community paper for granted, do not support it, question its relevancy, in addition to disparaging it with sarcastic and demeaning monikers such as the Evening Liar, which has been around for a long time. Yes, from time to time there are errors, omissions, misquotes, but I am here to advocate that local paper and its staff are significant, vital, and definitely relevant. Our paper is a living history textbook conveying stories about the St. Mary's journey. The local paper is there for us, but are we there for them? As I mentioned, there are iconic editors and writers that we can identify from the Evening Leader. However, two names that I have purposely left out are our focus today on Writer Nation Station. It is my pleasure to interview Jake and Teresa Dowling just days before they prepare to leave St. Mary's for Texas to take on their next vocational journey. They will reminisce with us about their 5 years working for the people of St. Mary's and what it actually takes to publish a local newspaper. Jake, Teresa, thanks for being here on Writer Nation Station.
No problem.
First off, ladies first, tell us about yourself quickly, hometown, high school, college.
Sure. I'm originally, my family is from the Delphus area, and then we moved to Findlay about the time I was in 6th grade. I went to Van Buren High School, which is about 7 miles north of Findlay. Small town, graduating class roughly the size of, say, like New Bremen. From there, I went to college at the University of Findlay, and a lot of people don't know this and it surprises them. I've got a bachelor's in animal science. I went to school originally to become a veterinarian, but chemistry and physics are hard, and I wasn't able to pass those and continue in the program. So then I just finished out and got my animal science degree and been trying to figure out what I wanted to do ever since.
And here you are.
And here I am.
Jake?
So I am born and raised in Findlay. And I went to Findlay High School, graduated in 2008 with about 500 kids, so a pretty big school. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to do coming out of high school, so I went to Owens Community College to do communications because I like to talk, believe it or not. And I went there, got my associate's degree in communications, and decided I either had to go to BG or Findlay, and I wanted to stay home, so I went to University of Findlay, and I studied journalism, and that's where when I was in college, I kind of realized that I liked to write. And when I was in high school, I wasn't really a strong writer. So I kind of developed as a writer at Owens, and then my first semester at Findlay, and then became a news writer for the school paper, and then sports writer for the paper too. And then my first job was in the Wapak Daily News as a staff writer. I was a sports stringer for 6 months, I think, and then staff writer, and then I came over here in June of 15 and got about 5.5 years of experience as a leader. Yeah.
Excellent. So a burning question for me, because we talked about some of the iconic people that have written for the Evening Leader. Maybe there have been, I'm not aware. But a married couple writing for the Evening Leader. So how did you go from two reporters working at the Evening Leader to becoming a married couple?
You want to take this one?
I can start and then you can finish.
Okay.
So I started in June of 15, and she moved down with me that May,
Okay.
right? May of 15. So then she was working at Horse Farm Bell Center. That lasted a few months, and then she left that place and worked at Tractor Supply here in St. Mary's, and then worked at Sunset Maber Farms for a Canner family in Wapak, just outside of Wapak. And then she was also helping me with sports. So the times that people would see me on the field, whether it was football or on the court, taking pictures, she would be in the press box or the crow's nest doing, taking play-by-play stats. So she was an intricate part in me getting my stories written, because I could focus on taking pictures and she could help me with the game. And I had everything laid out to where, like, this is what I need you to kind of look over or write down, so that I can write my stories, because I can focus on other things, but you keeping track of, certain stats, it will help me fill out my story. So she helped me with that on like a part-time basis. She was a stringer for the newspaper and got paid that way. So she knew.
Did you guys know each other prior to becoming a stringer?
We met in college.
Okay, met in college.
Yeah, way back. We met in college through a friend, an ex-girlfriend of mine now, and then we got together, and here we are. But fast forwarding to at the Leader, so she knew some of the staff. She knew Gail. She knew the editor and the reporters and stuff like that. And we had a reporter that left. They were still down a reporter at the time, so it was just me and Angie Klosterman. And Angie's like, she comes in for lunch one day. And she goes, "Do you want a job, full-time job?" And Teresa's like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Let me go quit my other job. I was working at Canton and West Chiropractic in Wapak at the time, and opportunity for full-time came up, and I had asked Dr. Cantner, because I'd been working with him for a while. I was like, "What do you think I should do?" And he's like, "Why are you asking me? This has benefits. The job you're at now doesn't. Go and be a reporter." And then we got engaged before that. Yeah, we were engaged before that.
Yeah, so we got engaged in July of 17. You got hired in
February of 18.
February of 18.
See, this is why we do things like this, because my assumption was that you didn't know each other. Now, I knew that you were both at the same school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that it all evolved at the paper. So this is why we make certain that we've got history correct for future generations.
Yeah.
And so the viewers know that you're both leaving the Evening Leader and going to a newspaper in Texas, and you're both working at that same newspaper,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How neat. So when you arrive here in St. Mary's, working for the Evening Leader, what was your first impression of St. Mary's?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, living in Wapak, there was that rivalry, so that didn't help.
Yeah.
So honestly, I didn't even know what to expect, to be honest with you. As soon as I came in, I kind of had a feeling it was like a blue collar town, which is, cool. And I don't know, I just kind of did my own thing, and then eventually, you start making connections here and there and there and there, and then it just kind of snowfalls in a good way from there. So I didn't really have, I guess I had a little premeditated thought, just because I had lived in Wapak and worked at the Wapak paper, and so there was always bad things said about St. Mary's. But at the same time, it's like, well, I've never really been to St. Mary's, only once to interview Scott Cisco. That was the only time I'd been over here. So I didn't really know what to think when I came in. So I had a pretty open mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had the added benefit of him already being here, and with helping part-time, I had an idea of who people were and all that, but I mean, just getting started in here, it was kind of that same sort of thing. I had been in Wapak, but realizing that the people here are actually like super friendly and generally pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really outgoing, and it's been great that they've embraced us as much as they have.
And I think one of the connections that both of you really made is with students.
Yeah.
I really think that's a connection that the Dowlings left an indelible mark on with sports and with clubs and doing the spotlights. I really want to say thank you to making certain that their stories were captured the way that you guys did over the last 5 years. Have your impressions changed at all from that first day in St. Mary's of our town?
I would say coming from a guy coming from a big city, Findlay's about 41,000 people. I never understood the small town stuff. Some kid would be walking down the street and like the 6-year-old or whatever, and it's like, where's his parents? Why is he walking by himself? And Teresa, who comes from a small town, would say, well, it's a small town thing. It's like, I don't understand that. So coming to St. Mary's and working for 5.5 years, I got to understand the small town, which is pretty cool. And that's probably the biggest thing. I never thought I would, to be honest, I never thought I would come away leaving St. Mary's thinking, I'm gonna miss this place. I'm gonna miss all these people, gonna miss all these connections, gonna miss the smallest things that comes with a small town, and more particularly St. Mary's. I never thought I was gonna say that, because I always thought, a big town guy, you just go from one place to the next, and you don't really leave your feelings behind or anything like that. So, yeah.
Very nice. Teresa?
Oh, I'm attached to St. Mary's, but in case you can't tell, I'm also very attached to New Knoxville.
Yep.
And I was actually there earlier today for a school event, and just seeing the interaction between, you've got seniors in high school, they were doing a line dance, and all the kindergartners like rush the court. And they're all doing, the same thing. Kids are teaching the younger ones like what they're doing. And just seeing the interaction and knowing that, these places are going to be okay.
Yep.
They've got a good future ahead of them, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Excellent. So now I'm going to challenge the two of you to think about going back to your first day working for the paper. Do you remember that first article that you wrote?
I remember the first layout that I had, and it was terrible. I
laid
laid out
as the editor?
As a sports editor. Sports editor. So I came on, when I came on in June of 15, I was a sports editor.
Correct. Yeah.
And so my first day of laying out was 2 pictures and 2 stories, and that was it. And now I can fit like 3 pictures and 5 stories. And,
yeah.
First story, I kind of think it was an Acme baseball game, to be honest with you. So I drew
that would make sense.
Yeah, so I drew a lot of my experience at Walpock, because I had covered Acme baseball and I covered baseball over there. So I kind of drew from that and wrote that story there. One thing that did kind of help, actually one of the just overall things that stood out to me was I think it was my first week, I reached out to ADs, to athletic directors to say, I'm the new guy, this is who I am, if you'd like to meet sometime, like that would be great. So I started those kind of connections, and that was kind of like one of the first things. I saw a college teammate, or a college classmate had done that in college. She was in Indiana, and she reached out to people from, I think, like superintendents, because she was covering schools, and like, that's a really good idea. So I kind of pulled from that and reached out to people instead of just showing up on the scene and saying, hey, I'm the new guy. I created that connection right away.
Yep.
So story-wise, to answer your question, probably Acme baseball.
Okay.
Layout-wise, I did a terrible job. But then overall, just reaching out to people and making my presence known, I think that really helped down the road.
Yep. Any idea, Teresa?
I think, well, the earliest one I can remember, I don't know for sure if this is my very first one, but in February, or maybe it was January, but by the time I got there, early February, Arts Place had a new director, Heather Dowell, and she was, we're both brand new at our jobs, and I was so nervous going into meter. I had all my questions written down. I had never done this before. Like, he had the advantage of going to school for it. I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was good to just sit down, and we both like talked about it. We're both like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it was kind of nice to have that connection right away.
Yeah.
And that was a nice thing to have maintained throughout the whole time.
And I think that's the one thing when you're talking about small towns earlier, and it's about relationships and connections in a small town. And, you definitely took the right path initially of going out and making those connections and letting those blossom. All right, what's been your favorite story that's provided you the most satisfaction as a journalist? And you have to start first this time, so Jake has a little more.
Good, I can think about it, yeah.
That's fair. It's actually super easy for me. So I had mentioned that I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out of college. Well, the summer that we got married, so 2018, I had set up with the St. Mary's Police and Fire Department that I was going to go on ride-alongs with them, just for the experience in writing a story that way. Well, after 7 years of not knowing what I was going to do with my life, riding along with the fire department and doing what they do, clicked that fire back on, and has got me involved with firefighting. I volunteered with New Knoxville up until Monday of this week. I had to turn all my stuff in. And it's something that's driving me. It's something I want to keep doing. So I would have to say that my ride along with St. Mary's Fire, and of course got to give shout outs to Chief Ayers for letting me do it. Matt Schralicki, Doug Bucher, and Sam Rimmel for putting up with me for a whole day.
And then, of course, you wrote about that experience then.
Yeah,
good.
I wrote about that, and I also did one with the police department as well.
Okay. Now, when you get settled in Texas, do you hope to try to find a force to work for?
Yeah, I've already reached out to Clute Fire, and they were on a call at the time, so obviously they're kind of a little busy right now with the weather.
Definitely.
But once we're settled in down there, I'll reach back out to them, see if I can get going there.
And if you're watching this, many decades past 2021, find a newspaper and look the second week, third week of 2021 in February for Texas weather and see what they had to endure. All right, Jake.
All right, so I had a pretty powerful story early on in my journalism career. So at the University of Findlay, they just said, if you're a journalism student, you're going to work for the school paper, and you're gonna get that experience. So my first semester at Findlay was 2011, 10 years after 9/11. So we did 9/11 coverage and some special things with that. So I had talked, I don't know how I got my foot through the door with this, but I got an interview with the president, Catherine Fell. She's a great person. She told me a good story about her son, I think, died in action, and he went into the service after 9/11. Another one, and I don't think I'll ever forget this interview. It was one of my first interviews, and I had talked to the wife of someone who had died at the towers. So it was like hugely emotional.
Sure.
And I handled that interview like a champ. I had her on speakerphone. My mom was in the other room. She heard me do the interview. Of course, I got a thumbs up from my mom, so I did a good job with interviewing. But I had never been through that kind of experience, something so powerful and emotional, and handling it the right way as a journalist.
Yeah.
Obviously you hear about fake news and how we're trying the gotcha journalism, and I didn't want to go that route. I didn't want to do it wrong. So that was a huge story very early in my career. I think my very first college story, I got to interview Anthony Edwards, who was Dr. Green in ER. And I loved ER, and I loved Dr. Green, so that was pretty cool.
That is.
He had come to the University of Findlay because a friend of his, University of Findlay has the Mazza Museum, which is children's books. And the whole museum is just full of children's books and authors who do children's books. So they were having a distinguished honor for this one writer, and Anthony Edwards happened to be a friend of his. So I got to meet a celebrity, again, early in my career, and you try not to be like talking about, tell me about being Dr. Green, for ER. It was something else. And other than him being an actor, I don't know anything about Anthony Edwards. So I had to try to, talk more about him or ask him questions about him being a friend of this writer. So I had to think, so quick off my feet and pivot, to a different subject. So those three things early in my career, those were big. And I felt like it kind of helped me with my interviewing skills because, you had talked about making connections and stuff. Teresa and I kind of have this thing that when we do interviews, it's not like an interrogation like style. Mm-hmm. It's just, let's just have a conversation. If you don't want something in the newspaper, that's fine, let me know. Yeah. Or if you say something that might not be good, to put in the newspaper, trust us and we can make you sound better. What do we always say? We make people sound good. Mm-hmm. So I got that trust early on as a reporter, and then that's translated to my career, where I want people to trust me, and I want to be a friend, not a reporter to a source. Right. So that was pretty early on in my career that helped me develop myself as an interviewer. Very long-winded answer, by the way. I tend to do that.
But I'm glad that I got to hear about you interviewing Dr. Green.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting.
All right, this is the last question before we take a quick break. From start to finish, how long does it take to write an article? And I'm going to preface this with just me preparing questions here. Mm-hmm. It takes a long time. But I don't have to write it, Yeah. I just get to ask and sit here and watch, and it takes a long time. So what do people know?
Well, a lot of people are surprised when we'll talk to them on, say, I don't know, a Friday morning, Friday afternoon. And we're like, okay, this is going to be in the Saturday paper. And they're like, oh, wow, like that fast. It depends. I know that's kind of like a get out of jail free card to every question.
Sounds like a lawyer answer.
Yeah, but it really does. Covering, like I cover Board of Education meetings. So I'll go to the meeting at 6:30 or 7, depending on who I'm covering, and get out about an hour later, and it's done by like 9:30.
Okay.
But the more feature-ish ones, like I'm working on a story right now about Ross Bailey and his fishing show. And I interviewed him Wednesday, and I'm about halfway done with it.
Yeah.
So the more detail-oriented, the more feature-ish, the longer it takes, because, not that I want to get it more right, but there's more ways to go wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're just kind of putting things together and making sure that it all sounds good.
And knowing Russ the way that I do, I'm certain that he gave you hours upon hours upon hours of an interview.
Yes, I've got, I think, about 20 minutes with him, and he sent me 6 pictures.
I need to talk to Russ one day, because he's got to be the biggest celebrity dog warden in the United States of America.
That would be a good story to look into, actually. A lot of research. So taking the sports aspect of it, let's say, I think it was last week, I covered a St. Mary's, I think it was the St. Mary's Salina girls basketball game, the sectional semifinal. And so I talked to John Burt, the coach. That's like a 2 to 3 minute interview. He talks a lot, so it was actually probably about a 5-minute interview, which is fine. And I had on my feed, I thought, I could do a feature story on a couple girls. So I came back to the office. It was probably 9 o'clock. My deadline is midnight, 11:30 midnight. So I had the gamer to write up, and I usually write like 1,000 words. I can get that done in like 45 minutes. So, transcribe the interview, write the story, about 45 minutes, maybe to edit, be like an hour. And then after that, I had my feature story that I wanted to write about 2 girls who have become really good friends and then have helped the team get, better because they're really good players or all WBL players. And that took another half an hour, 45 minutes. And then you had to do the paper. You had to lay out the paper. You had to pick out your pictures and lay out your paper. I don't think there was any other games going on that night. So yeah, that took, and there was 3 pages to lay out. So it takes, I've timed myself before, and it takes an hour and 45 minutes to lay out 2 pages.
Wow.
Write it and then lay it out. So I had 3 pages, so it probably took like 2.5 hours. So, and the short of it, if I have a gamer and I had to write it, probably about 45 minutes. We timed ourselves before. It takes about 45 minutes to write a general basic story. Probably 2 hours. Let's say like a Rotary. It's kind of like a feature-ish story that I cover like every week. That usually takes about close to 2 hours, from transcribing 20, 30 minutes when they talk to cutting all what they transcribe to try to fit it and to edit it. I would say a good 2 hours. So yeah, anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, and then that doesn't include the layout of the newspaper.
And then if you happen to have a Friday night football game at Defiance.
Those are always fun. We plan accordingly though.
Those are tag teams. I'll drive
Yeah.
while he's writing on
No
the way
kidding.
back.
Yeah, and then by the time we get back, my story is done. I've already transcribed Doug Fry's
darn.
quotes. Yeah, and I just gotta pick pictures out and then lay it out.
Huh.
Yeah.
Efficient and effective.
Oh yeah, you gotta
Jake and Teresa
be.
Dowling. What a team. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with word association, and then we'll continue on with the interviews.
Okay.
This segment of Writer Nation Station has been brought to you by Plus One Professionals Real Estate, selling St. Mary's from the corner of Spring and Chestnut since 1982. American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistic partner, investing in the St. Mary's community.
All right, thank you to those fine sponsors. We're back with word association. So I'm going to give you a word. I want you to come up with the first thing that comes to your mind about it. Teresa, we'll start with you. Summerfest.
Long day.
Between us, teamwork.
Lot to cover.
A lot to cover, and we kill it. We really do. We feel like we do a really good job.
Yeah, the last Summerfest that we did, I think.
2019.
Well, obviously it wasn't last year.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
2019. What did we figure over the course of the weekend? We were working.
Yeah, trying to think of that Facebook
20
post.
hours?
Yeah, 20
only
hours a
slept-
week, and
We only slept for like 6.
I think so.
Oh my.
Only home for like 4.
Yeah.
We had, oh man, how many stories did we have? Like 10?
I think so.
10 stories, a bunch of thousands of pictures. She had a nice tan line where her watch was. But it's a lot of work for just the 2 of us. I mean, we have a 3-person staff, but we don't ask a 3rd person to do Summerfest because we feel like we can handle it. It's a long day, but it ends up being fun at the end. When you see all that hard work pay off, it's fun.
Yeah.
Excellent. All righty, the next one. Grand Lake Health System Field, the Alumni Stadium.
That's a long name. You know what? Well, as a photographer, great lights. I love shooting there as a photographer, but it's also a really cool atmosphere. I think it was like the first or second game of the season. Well, when they played Van Wert and they played Shawnee, the first 2 games there. It was just cool. It was like a miniature college town. It was like going to a University of Findlay football game. You know, UF they're Division II. They play out of Downell Stadium with the high school it plays on, but it's a small little nice college feel to it for that afternoon. And that's kind of what it felt like there. It's pretty cool. It's a good experience.
Yeah, I'd say excitement. You know, you feel that buzz. In this past year, I worked with the SMAB, doing a whole bunch of video with them, and I was in my college marching. I was in marching band in Findlay. So kind of being in that, feeling that buzz, and looking through the videos that I had put on kids of them walking up to the stadium, like I get that excitement, I get those feelings again.
Very neat. The Evening Leader Building. Teresa?
Home away from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spend about 50 to 60 hours a week there, so we've definitely made it as homey as we can because we spend more time there than we do at home.
It's an old building.
Yeah,
is.
we even bought a futon just so we could
Get a respite here
yeah,
and there.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it is an old building. I mean, we kind of feel like there's Casey Geiger's ghost is somewhere in that building sometimes. Yeah, I would say home away from home. In a good and a bad way. You know, bad way because we're never at home, but kind of a good way because, well, now if you check it out, it's there's nothing on the walls, but the walls were all decked out because we're like, you know, if we're gonna stay here for all these hours, let's just make it homey. And we did. We kind of made it our own home. We made it comfortable. So a lot of times it didn't really feel like work. You were just going into another room and working. Yeah.
And the final one, word association, the Bell of St. Mary's, the canal boat.
I've always wanted to kind of go on there, just to kind of like check it out. It'd be kind of cool.
You've never been on the Bell of St. Mary's?
I've never been on there, huh?
Me
Nope.
neither.
No. It would be kind of cool to
We
experience
may
it back
need to
then.
find somebody with a key to get into the locked areas. Obviously, you can get on it, but
Yeah.
we got till Monday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that's the second one, actually. The first one ended up rotting away. And,
Oh, jeez.
Because it was down in the water.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's
This one's up.
built the way that it is, because you learn from your initial mistakes. So,
Yeah.
Teresa, anything? Bell of St. Mary's?
Good photo op.
Yeah.
I've gotten some good pictures of it and the mule. When Mr. Rohrbach redid the harness of the mule, like it was a great day for taking pictures, but it was also a great backdrop.
Excellent. So there you have it, word association. We'll take a quick commercial break and we'll finish up the second half of the interview with Jake and Teresa Dowling talking about their time at the Evening Leader.
This segment of Writer Nation Station has been brought to you by Plus One Professionals Real Estate, selling St. Mary's from the corner of Spring and Chestnut since 1982. American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistic partner, investing in the St. Mary's community.
Alrighty, thank you to those fine sponsors. We're back with the second half of the interview, Jake and Teresa Dowling. Jake, what do you like most about being a journalist?
Telling people's stories. So this is going to be another long-winded answer, but I like being a journalist because I can tell people stories because I feel like everybody's got a story to tell. And the reason, this is the backdrop to the reason why I became a journalist. I have a story to tell that not a whole lot of people know about. I'm a cancer survivor. Yeah, two-time cancer survivor.
Never knew that.
Yeah. It's not really something I share too often because I don't want people to think Jake the cancer survivor. I want people to think Jake like the person, journalist, that kind of thing. So I'm a two-time cancer survivor. I always thought growing up I was going to be a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Or like a center fielder for the Cleveland Indians because I was a huge Indians fan with like Kenny Lofton and Jim Thome during the great era in the 90s. So that's what I was gonna do. And physically, I just couldn't do it. Playing midget football, I got pummeled, and I was not a very good baseball t-ball player, pee-wee ball player. So I knew sports, I just couldn't compete. The only sport I could compete in was bowling, but that wasn't really a sport that I could make a living on. So it was really when I was at Owens and I took a composition class and I thought, I can't help but not write about sports. I like writing about sports. I had the most experience and know the most about sports. So that kind of got me to thinking that if I can't compete against these guys, I can cover these guys. I can tell their stories because they have a story to tell. I have a story to tell. And I had a friend who I kind of reported that I befriended who covered the Green Bay Packers. And I reached out to him and we went out to dinner. We'd go on vacation up in Green Bay and I went out to dinner with him one time. And I liked the way that he wrote his stories. He built those connections with players. He's a feature-ish guy. He likes to write features. And so he would sit down and come up with these great stories, these really like inside stories about these players that you wouldn't see, on the gridiron. They're just, Ironman like players that beat their brains out, every Sunday. But he really unmasks them and shows them as people. And I always thought as a reader, that is so cool. So that really influenced me then, as well as being a cancer survivor and physically being limited, not being able to compete. That really influenced me to want to unmask those players, whether they're high school players or collegiate players or whatever sport they play in, and get to know them more and treat them more as human beings and not just as, a kid that I don't know your number, I don't know your name, but I need you to talk to me real quick for a story so I can put it in the paper.
Right.
It was always more than that. So that's why I like being a journalist more. That's why I like being a journalist, is because I get to build those connections and treat people like human beings and like friends. And so that's what means a lot.
Back to what we talked about before, you definitely develop relationships with the people of St. Mary's, and you get to do that as being a journalist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's made this whole leaving harder than we thought it would be. We've been emotional a couple times because we didn't know in five and a half years and 3 years that she's been working on the paper that we would impact so many people's lives when really we just did our jobs.
Yep.
And to the best of our abilities.
Yeah. My favorite part by far is the relationships and experiences. Kind of similar to him. Not quite the same background, obviously. But just getting to know people and understanding the way things work and why something might seem like it doesn't make sense that it's done a certain way, but getting to understand that there's a reason behind everything, and then trying to explain that is a fun challenge.
Yeah. Yep. I like to write, but I don't write often, and I'm not published. So I take way too much time. And I'm like, if I had to be a journalist with a deadline, your first layout would look pretty good because I would have nothing.
Yeah.
It's not ready, I would continually tell myself. So you've touched on this next question, Jake, and as an editor, laying out the paper, and you're not the publisher, but kind of talk from what you guys see being in the newspaper business, everything that it takes to have that daily newspaper ready to go. I mean, there's a team, albeit the team today is greatly, significantly smaller than what it was back in Casey Geiger's day. Mm-hmm. When I go up into the archive room to pull out Evening Leader, I think about everybody who would have been up there working to make that paper happen, and now it's truly a microcosm of what it used to be to make that paper happen. But just kind of talk through, what does it take to put a daily newspaper together? Yeah, and just to give you like an understanding of like what little staff we have, it was the Canetta fire a couple years ago, and a story was unearthed about a similarity in St. Mary's where Circle K is now, and there was a fire down there in the 80s, I think? 90s. We looked at that edition because we wanted to fill in some information about a story that was written about it, and it showed the staff. It was 8 people that we counted in the newsroom. We have 3 today who, one does all news and sports, she does all news, and then we have another person who does a split between news and sports. So that's, just the kind of understanding that we go through. I'm a news editor, but I don't feel like I'm a very good news editor because I just don't have that kind of sense to news like I do for sports. So it's been a transition. But every Sunday night, when we put the paper to bed, we do what we call budget. So we come up with story ideas. So let's say second week of the month is our like meeting week.
So I have St. Mary's City Council. Our reporter Corey has New Bremen Village Council. She'll have Airport Authority Tuesday nights. He's got New Bremen, New Knoxville Rotary for Wednesday's paper, Tuesday for Wednesday's paper. I have St. Mary's Rotary for Wednesday's paper, or Wednesday for Thursday's paper. So we come up with story ideas, what we think would be newsworthy, that's local. And sometimes, especially with COVID, it's been hard because there's been no events. Things have been really curtailed, that kind of stuff. So it all starts with budgeting first. And it really helps to know that what we have to do that day to get some content in the newspaper. And then once that content is in, content being stories from us, content being stories that we share from the Walpock paper, or content being like press releases or AP news that we do run like on A2 or A3. We put all that together and say, okay, now we have to put it into the newspaper then. Select stories, like our byline stories, go on page 1, sometimes 2 if we don't have space on 1, and then they get jumped to A5. A4 is our opinion life page, and mostly that's reserved for columnists, like Tim Benjamin will write a column, John Bernstein will write a column, or Dean's List, President's List for college graduates, or college, I guess high school graduates, local high school graduates when they're in college, or the first 9 weeks honor roll, that kind of stuff. And then 3 is our obit page, our records page, and we'll run AP wire stories. And then for sports, obviously if there's anything going on, or if I come up with a feature story, or preview story, or I just run AP wire. So it all starts with budgeting, and then once we know what we're doing those days, it really helps. And then there's sometimes it seems like Friday's paper is always a struggle to get content, and sometimes we just have to go out and find something, or something just falls into our lap. Yeah. And a lot of times, because of the connections we have, things just fall into our lap, and we can come up with a story. Or there's something very minute that a bigger newspaper wouldn't think is newsworthy, but because we have that connection with a lot of people, we can talk to that one person and it transforms into a story. So we never really sit on our hands and hope something happens. A lot of times when we do have everything set in place, then there's a fire or a wreck, and then it blows everything up. So you always have to just have an eye and be like, I wonder why that is, or I wonder if we know about this that's happening. But yeah, it all starts with budgeting and just going from there. If we didn't budget, we'd be lost for sure.
Yeah, and something I don't think that people realize is we do everything but sell the ads. We have a marketing director and we have one salesperson. They're responsible for selling the ads. They tell us where the ads go on the page, and then it's our job to do everything else. Write the stories, take the pictures, put the paper together, edit it, make sure it all looks good. Back in the day, they had a photographer. They had 4 or 5 reporters who would just write their stories. They had a copy editor. They had someone to lay the pages up. We wear all these hats now.
Yeah.
And it's an all-day thing. We get our dummy, which tells us where the ads are, about 1 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
And we'll work pretty much from about 2 to 3 all the way up until midnight, doing everything.
Wow.
Yep.
So it's a career, but it's also your life. Extending that long, and as you said, home away from home, and you made the office your home, etc. I got to ask this question: did locals, when you guys got into the business here in St. Mary's, talk to you about Casey Geiger?
Oh yes, they still do.
And what do they tell you? What are some of the just couple?
Do you want the good or
facts?
the bad?
Let's stay positive.
Okay. Well, recently we've been hearing from a few of our friends that they appreciate everything that we've done, and they're putting us on the same level as Casey Geiger, which is a huge honor for us, because we always hear about how good of a job she did, and we see it when we do Leader Look Back. We'll look back at editions from 50 years ago, and we're seeing, the work that she did, and it feels good to have that, admiration, I guess, but really all we're just doing our jobs. And that's just how we see it. We go to work every day just to do our jobs, just to tell other people's stories. And if people like it, then that's great, and it's an honor to be considered among her.
Yeah, it's been a tough situation in sometimes because I think a lot of people, I don't know, I don't know if the paper wasn't up to par in the 75, 80, 90s, early 2000s. People just kind of forget what the paper looked like back then, or if Casey Geiger really made that much of a difference, because everybody's always comparing us to Casey Geiger. And it's hard to step into, especially when we don't really understand it, because we're not from around here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, all we can really do is we can do the best we can. You're not going to understand what we go through, and that's totally fine. I mean, you probably shouldn't, because you're not in that field. But it's also not fair to her, and also to us, to compare us to her, because for one, there's been so many years that have gone by since she left, and times were different back then.
Yeah.
But you don't understand that. So you just take it at face value and you say, well, I just, like she said, we just try our best, and some people will like it, other people won't, and that's fine, because you can't always change what people say. But it meant a lot when I had a friend come in Wednesday, and he's been a long time leader subscriber. We're good friends, and he said, you know what? You guys, what you guys did is just about as good as Casey Geiger. It's like that means a lot, that, and just 5.5 years and 3 years that we've been the leader, somebody thinks that highly of us, of that person. That means a lot. And like she said, we just did our jobs because we pay our bills, we need money to feed ourselves and all that kind of stuff. We're just like everybody else. But yeah.
Very neat. There's that old adage that you never want to be the successor to a legend.
Yeah.
You want to be the successor to the person who was the successor to the legend. But how many decades has Casey Geiger not been here, and still St. Marian's have her on that pedestal, and things refer back to her. And that's why I wanted to ask this question. I truly didn't know if people were still referring to her.
Yep.
To you guys in the business, and it's very interesting.
Probably about once a week we hear about Casey Geiger.
Oh my goodness, that's interesting. 5 years now. Let's fast forward 5 years now down the road. Tell me your hopes and your dreams for downtown St. Mary's. Who wants to tackle that one first?
I'll take that. I think downtown St. Mary's has a bunch of potential. And I think people realize that. My hope is that, 5 years from now, people have taken the initiative to say, you always hear, well, why don't we have this downtown? Why don't we have this downtown? Well, you have that idea, find somebody to back you and bring it here. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
And every business down here at some point was probably like, man, I don't know if this is going to work out. They gave it a shot, and we have these thriving downtown businesses, and we need more of those. So we just need more people to take that leap of faith and start what they want to see here.
Makes me look back 5 years and see whether or not things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, anything on downtown 5 years from now?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I cover city government. One thing of news that I never thought I would like is city government, and I've enjoyed it. And talking to city officials often on the record about St. Mary's, but also their downtown plans. And you just wish that, you hope everybody just supports what's going on, because there's a lot they've had to get done, and there's a lot they still have to do with like the limited amount of money. And you just hope that everything falls into place for the city, and that individuals do step up and open a business. I know I've never opened a business, so I can't even imagine what all goes through. But hopefully, everything falls into place for those people who are brave enough and ambitious enough to want to own a business down here, and just go out there and try it. And hopefully everybody just, pitches in and supports, because, it would be pretty cool. Obviously, we're sitting across the street from Granaries, and we're seeing all these people coming and going, and that would be great. So I would love to see restaurants. I would love to see businesses and people just being able to walk up and down the street. It would be cool. It really would be, and maybe even so good to where the city's got to make a change. Well, I don't know if they could, but like with traffic. So like in Findlay, Findlay was ravaged with the flood back in '07. I was a senior that year, and it was kind of dead. It was kind of like St. Mary's in a way, and there was an investment made from the city and from the community, and now downtown is thriving. They really had to alter it to slow traffic down because it was like a raceway in some ways, and that place is it's amazing. In just the 5-6 years that I've been gone from there, it's a total transformation. So, seeing that personally, I would love to see that happen in St. Mary's, where there's just a total transformation. And there are a lot of plans in place that the city is going to do that people either know about or don't know about. And hopefully that all that happens, and that happens for them too. That'd be really cool. It could take a little bit longer than 5 years, just because money, and it just takes a long time. But I think if everybody supports everybody, I think it can happen.
That's the key thing there. Everybody supports everybody. Back at you, Grand Lake St. Mary's. 5 years.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool to see revitalized. Because it is kind of neat to see a lake so big right in the middle of practically nowhere, in a flat area with a lot of villages around it. It would be kind of neat. We went to Lake Erie for our honeymoon, and was it canoeing or kayaking?
Canoeing.
Canoeing. After I got through my fear of canoeing, it was a blast. It would be so cool to see something, a lot smaller scale, but that happen here. Where you can have those opportunities with the lake being in a better shape. I think they're getting there, and obviously the people that are working on it, they know what they're doing. But yeah, it takes time with science and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it would be great to see that.
Yeah, I think it's well on its way to hopefully getting back to the health that it was at in its heyday. Because there used to be an amusement park there. Like, people used to take trips to go there. I remember my junior year of high school, my biology teacher, she used to bring her dog down to Grand Lake, and I had no idea what Grand Lake was. And through my biology class, she talked about what was happening at Grand Lake. So that was, my junior year. That would have been 2009, 2010. So in 10 years, it's starting to get back to where, they're talking about taking those signs down and everything. And just to be able to know the science the whole way through, and then through what we do reporting on it, it's good to hear that people are making that investment, and everybody wants the lake to get better. It doesn't matter if you're from Salina or St. Mary's. It doesn't matter. We all share the lake. We all want it to be better. So I hope that it continues in the way that it is, and they can take those signs down and leave them down.
Me too. Last one, Rough Rider Sports.
It'd be so cool if somebody else other than bowling could win a state title. Yeah, but they're well on their way. I remember, so before I came here, I don't think a lot of the athletics. I was just thinking about this the other day. A lot of St. Mary's athletics weren't really like they are today. They weren't competitive. Obviously, we know the football team wasn't competitive. The girls' basketball team was really struggling. Hagemeyer in his first stint was, kind of getting the basketball program going. Baseball was kind of in limbo. Softball had really good seasons in the early 2010s, and then they had they've had their dry spell. Where Salina was doing really good in their sports athletics, and now it's flipped. Yeah. I've been blessed as a sports reporter to get to cover some great St. Mary's teams. I would love for one to see that stadium the way it is. I talked to Holman about it a couple years ago, and I compared what the stadium out there could be, Rough Rider Athletic Complex, what it could look like, similar to Bell Fountain. I mean, Bell Fountain is so secluded, but it's really pretty in August because they would have their scrimmages out there. Of course, we would go and cover the scrimmages, and it was really, really pretty. I mean, you wouldn't even think you're in Bell Fountain. You wouldn't even think there's a town there. It's so out in the, it looked like it's out in the country. And that field could be like that, and that would be really exciting. But, you know, covering high school sports and then knowing some of the junior high kids that are coming up, like I know some programs are still in really good shape. Boys basketball, girls basketball, baseball's got some really good talents. You know, softball's got some really good talents coming up. I love to see that continue, and I would love to see, you know, bowling's had the state championships the last few years. Now I'd love to see, you know, some other sports get really close. I mean, man, girls soccer was so close this year. That was a fun season.
That was fun.
Never expected that to happen. That would be really, really cool. Covering a team like that, as a reporter, it is so fun because of the storylines that come out, the pictures that you can take, the stories that you can write. They're more than just gamers. They're your storytelling, and it's fun. So the next person who comes in and takes over this job, they're going to have some good athletics for a few years.
I just got chills and goosebumps just reminiscing as you were talking about the Lady Riders soccer team. That was fun.
Yeah.
Rough Rider Sports, 5 years.
I hope it continues on the trend that it's been going, like he touched on. My high school, when I was there, our boys soccer team was pretty good. That was about it. So it's exciting having been a high school athlete and been on a team that, you know, we were competitive, but we couldn't get past the sectional round. So to be able to follow these teams that are on the cusp of going to state, or just seeing the excitement of the town rallying around these teams and these kids that are doing these incredible things is awesome, and I hope that never ends.
Amen. Let's talk April Fool's Day. Is the concept of writing a fictitious article something you inherited or something that you brought?
That was something we inherited. I think I enhanced it with one particular article that you actually helped me with.
I was scared to death on that one.
I heard a few people got some phone calls
Yep.
and complaints. For those of you who might not have read it, and obviously down the road you're not going to know about this, but it was 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I had floated an idea of a countywide fire service, and I had talked to Doug, and I had talked to Greg Foxhoven, service director, and I had talked to Doug Ayers, the fire chief. And we got a few people on that one. It was pretty good, and I've looked back at some of the other ones, and, you know, reading it, you could kind of tell that it was fake. You know, the names are made up, or just, you know, dinosaur bones are found in the canal or something like something really far out there. But this, to again use those connections and the relationships we had,
Right.
to make it so believable, and then at the very end throw in that gotcha line.
To see how many people actually read from first word to last word, and there were some, and I serve as a county commissioner, and so that's where the tie-in was, and we had some township trustees who didn't read all the way to the end.
Yes.
And it was fun, and knew that there was going to be a few phone calls because people weren't going to read all the way to the end. But yeah, that's always a neat day, April Fool's Day, in the Evening Leader, when that fictitious article is there, and is it or isn't it? And you've got to go all the way to the end to find that out. So yeah, I'm glad that that's something that you guys continue to participate in and enhance it. And I got a cool patch out of the deal.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to have a follow-up because I think April Fool's was on a holiday on a weekend on 2019, and then obviously 2020 was not. Spring of 2020 was not the time to be joking.
Yeah, we made that call on that one. Yep.
Made the decision not to do that. So we hope that whoever takes their spot, you know, see if you can top that article.
And see whether or not the Clute newspaper will want to do that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
All righty, here at Rider Nation Station, we always state that we do what we do, yes, for today, but really more importantly for St. Mary's 50 years down the road. With that in mind, what do you want those who somehow come across our podcasts and look back into the papers and find articles by Jake Dowling or by Teresa Dowling, what do you want them to think about Jake and Teresa's journalists and as people?
Oh, man. All right, can you take that one first?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I hope that our genuine care for what we're writing about comes through time and through the pages. I hope that the honesty and trust that we try and portray, because it really is, that's who we are. We're very honest. What you see is what you get. Like, we're not going to twist what you say to fit our narrative or whatever that people think that every journalist does. Like, not every journalist does that. So I'm hoping that people 50 years from now will read that and be like, you know, these people cared. And to be able to read that is, I guess, my goal is just make it as honest and truthful as I possibly can.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, and that's from an answer that comes from somebody who wasn't a journalist. I mean, she could easily be like I'm just doing this as a job for money because it pays the bills, which is true, but we're just wired that way that we just can't not care. That's just not how we're wired. So for me, from a professional standpoint, I hope people say, you know, they're good storytellers. Because I feel like that's what makes a story. It's not just, you know, writing beginning to end, or different kind of, you know, story, ways to write a story, you know, stuff like that. I hope that we told stories well, whether it's a person or the city or a feature on something. I hope people see that. From a personal standpoint, yeah, I would pretty much echo what she says, because we know how much we care. Even when we don't care, we still care about our product. We still care about what we're putting out there because our name's on it. We put on these hours. I mean, if we didn't care, we'd probably just stay home and not write. Sure. You know, but we don't miss a day of work. Even when we think it's just the smallest minute thing, it bothers us that we just feel like we didn't put 125% in. So yeah, from a personal standpoint, I hope people feel that same way, that, you know, they cared about the product of the newspaper, because like I said, she didn't go to this. She didn't go to college for this kind of stuff. And I've been in this for 5 years. I didn't think I'd be in a small newspaper doing this kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, I think the true assessment is whether or not you leave something better than when you found it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can speak for all St. Marians that you guys definitely did, and appreciate all of your efforts to do what you did for the Evening Leader, for our youth, and for our community as a whole. You made it better than what you founded. So
yeah, we appreciate that comment. I mean, it's humbling for us because, like I said, we're just two middle class, you know, husband and wife couple. We don't have any kids. We get along. We work really well together, and we take that to pride. We're a power couple. You know, there's people has given us nicknames and that kind of stuff, but we work hard and we don't really complain about it, just to ourselves, you know, and we just try our best. And that's what we tell people. Even when we fail at something and we get told about it and we get yelled at about it, at the end of the day, it's like we try our best. That's all we can do.
Yep. Well, best of luck to you in the future in Clute, Texas. And,
thank you.
We'll see whether or not we can find you online and read an article or two into the future. Well, we've come to the close to another one of our vodcasts. It is our hope we have educated, enlightened, enhanced, or elevated your perspective about St. Mary's, Ohio. Think positively about your town, the one we didn't inherit from our ancestors, but the one we borrowed from our grandchildren. Peace to you, always and always, St. Mary's. Excellent, guys. Awesome.
This segment of Writer Nation Station has been brought to you by Plus One Professionals Real Estate, selling St. Mary's from the corner of Spring and Chestnut since 1982. American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistic partner, investing in the St. Mary's community.